Hello, welcome back to the sunny, windy outcrop that is the Snooker Fife. I hope you've had a good couple of weeks. We have had a very eventful time in that our Beagle Lab Cross, Nora, has had puppies. She had 6 healthy puppies, and it's just like the best use of time, really, puppy therapy. You can watch a tiny puppy for a really very long time. They're just constantly squiggling and squeaking and squawking, and they are very, very sweet. Anyway, if you're interested in puppy photos and puppy videos, most of our social media stories have contained puppies at some point, and I'm assuming that's going to continue for the next 8 to 10 weeks. So there we go. Right, we are today speaking to Tom Morrison, who you may already know. Andrew found Tom when he had his back injury a few months ago, and he's just really got a very straightforward approach and kind of honest and sometimes very funny in terms of his video content, approach to movement and mobility. But his story is also a really powerful one in that he had quite a few back injuries and he's now recovered, and he's just got a big, deep desire to kind of help others feel stronger and more capable, in his words, flong and sexable. So in this conversation, they cover his journey from chronic pain to becoming a sort of mobility coach, I guess. He comes out of a CrossFit background. What the fitness industry gets wrong, and why strength doesn't always look like the way that we're told. We also talk about the kind of emotional side of injury and how to come back from those moments when everything feels lost and hopeless. It's a really lovely listen, actually. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was a real pleasure to speak to Tom, because signing up to his program was for Andrew was a real kind of light bulb moment, in that he comes from a very similar background to Tom, had done CrossFit and a lot of more conventional strength training, and then had just injured himself through just an injury that could have been avoided had he been doing more mobility work. So it was a real pleasure to speak to Tom and hear more about his work. So let's get cracking, and I'll be back at the end.
How to stand on shifting sand. How to bend but stay intact.
Okay, I am here today with Tom Morrison, and a lot of you will know Tom Morrison already. Some of you won't, so I told Tom already, just to start off with an intro. So this is a big question. Who are you, and how did you get here?
I'm Tom Morrison, and it's my life's goal to make the entire world more flong and sexable. So the idea behind that is that I want everyone to have a good level of strength and flexibility, to just a good standard, like just good enough so that they feel good and they can do whatever it is that they want to do, the things that they love to do, without feeling like their body's letting them down. So the big bad world is quite confusing, and you can be falling into traps of believing you have to do a million different things, but it doesn't have to be that complicated, and it can be a lot more fun as well. So we see ourselves as like the enablers. We want to help you to fix your problems, learn a bit more about your body so that you know how to manage it yourself, so that you can go out and do those like amazing things in the world, because there's so much stuff out there to try, and you could be 1 year away from the best year of your life of finding something that you are so passionate about that you just can't even stop yourself. So that was a big part of my own background as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, immediately you said a few things that I'd like to pick up on, because the language you use is similar to a lot of what we say. Is just getting people out, doing the things they love to do, thinking about what's important to you. And I think that's a great angle, because so often when people are in the fitness industry, they lose the forest through the trees. And what I mean is, sometimes people forget there's a life outside the gym, and they think that is ultimately what the goal is to get really good at exercising. but obviously there's a whole world out there, and I love what you said about being an enabler. I think that's a great idea because people do encounter so many little barriers, whether it's internal, external, environmental, and kind of living the lives that they want to live. All right, so yeah, you've talked about this idea of being flong and sexable, and really this, the importance of flexibility, the importance of capability, the importance of strength, and things like that. Um, but you weren't always flawed and flexible. I think you kind of have an interesting story about where you came from. So as much as you're comfortable, I was wondering if you just kind of briefly talk about how you got into where you are right now, and maybe how your own narratives or self-beliefs changed along the way.
Yeah, like it was a massive journey for me. The way we kind of teach, so the flong and flexible idea is to be strong and flexible. You can be two different types. You can be what we would call like someone that's very, very stiff and very inflexible. We call that
Mm,
like a fridge brick. You're
yeah.
basically a fridge made of bricks. You're just so rigid that you can't move at all. You like it feels like your bones can't do the things. And then we also have who my business partner Jenny. She is on the bendy Wendy side of things. So you can also be hypermobile. So you can actually be too flexible. So what we kind of find over the years of like working with many people and ourselves and stuff was that you want to have that nice bit in the middle where you can create tension and you are very strong, but you're also able to have good flexibility in your joints and move okay. So for me, where I fell, I was full on fridge brick. Like I couldn't touch my toes. I thought it was normal to struggle to tie your shoelaces. I couldn't reach my arms above my head. My upper back was rounded. My head was going forwards. I was all twisted in all kinds of different ways as well. And I just thought this is just what things feel like. Everybody gets out of breath when they walk up the stairs, and I would just have laughed it off and haha, I'm not fit. But like I didn't realize at the time how much it affected me as a person.
Mm,
So like I remember years and years ago, first ever time me and my wife we went to Amsterdam, and I complained the whole time because my hip was sore, and like I was 18, 19 at the time. And I was just like, oh, these stairs. And I was complaining about everything. And we were going to see the sights and stuff. And I was just moaning about my back being sore, my hip being sore. And this was well long before I ever even got badly injured. So, you don't realize how bad you feel because you've nothing to compare it to. You only
mm,
have yourself as a comparison. And I used to think it was normal for knees to hurt
yeah.
and, getting up and down off the floor. It's like, oh, I hate doing that. I would have rather just stood and leaned on something than get down to the floor because it was so challenging for me. And that was in my teens. Like, so I had no interest in exercise whatsoever. But then all my friends started calling me beef because I started putting on so much weight.
Yeah.
And in a friendly way, whenever good friends do.
Yeah.
If you're from the UK, you know that you kind of, if you've got a really really good friend, you just rake on them
Yep.
basically. So that was kind of my encouragement. Like, well, you know what, I'm going to get fit then, and that was my mid-20s. So I went from having zero interest in any kind of exercise. I would have smoked probably 30 cigarettes a day at the time.
Wow.
And, vodka was my best friend, and so I went from doing that to then training 6 days a week. And I was at a point where I was doing an hour of like heavy lifting, and then I would have done like a CrossFit class, and then I would have went over across the mat to the martial arts area,
Mm,
and I would have done about 2 or 3 hours of martial arts after that. Pretty
wow.
much 6 days a week. If I could, I would have done
Wow.
more, but I usually try to give myself one rest day a week. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I went from doing nothing to like training like 5, 6 hours a day. I would have even done morning sessions and evening sessions. I completely fell in love with it, and then I lost the weight and I felt healthier, and I was moving a little bit better. But over the course of a year, I just kept getting hurt, and just in my knee hurt, and my back hurt, and then my neck hurt, and then my shoulder hurt, and then my back again, and I kept just tweaking things all of the time. And I just thought that must just be what happens to
Mm,
everybody. It's just par for the course. You're going for it. Injuries are part of the training, and it really doesn't have to be that way. So what I started to realize was just how inflexible I was, and I was kind of laughing it off at the time. Just thought, well, I just can't do that. So I started to delve into the big world of mobility stuff, and
yeah.
YouTube wasn't what it was back then. So you would come
Right.
across the resistance bands and the foam rolling stuff and all that there. So I was basically trying to relax and massage myself to better flexibility, which I did start to improve my flexibility. I was able to start squat lower and stuff, but I had no strength in the range of motion. And even though I was moving better, well, it appeared I was moving better, I then ended up injuring my back really, really badly. So I ended up with an L4, L5 disc protrusion
Yeah.
and an L5 S1 disc extrusion with impingement on the nerve root as well. So like I couldn't put my left leg to the ground. It was too painful to stand up straight, agonizing pain. So I went from having this like life I wasn't really enjoying to the best year of my entire life. Like I was waking up early in the morning because I couldn't wait to get to the gym, and it was a massive change in my life for me. And I'm so happy. And then boom, gone, taken
Yep.
away. I can't walk. Oh, I'm expecting a kid. How am I going to be able to hold a child? Okay, where's the cigarettes? Where's the vodka again? So I'm a very dramatic person. I
Yeah.
like to make a scene if I can. So yeah, that was, for me, going through that made me realize the importance of movement in your life, and having that independence and that physical freedom was so important to me that that's what set me on the path of learning everything that I know now.
I think I think anyone who's ever experienced acute back pain or any kind of acute injury, I think physically and culturally, I think back pain probably has a special place in our society, because it does feel so total, and so, sometimes this word is overused, but so disempowering, quite literally. The injury you described is almost similar to exactly similar to what I had. Same spot in the lumbar spine. Extrusion. Couldn't walk, couldn't stand up straight. And yeah, it's that contrast from feeling like you're capable, you can do things. As you were saying, also the context of being a father, about to be a father, and just realizing all of a sudden you can't participate in the responsibilities that you have. So it when this happens to people, it is one of the most terrifying things. And you mentioned sort of being dramatic, and I've got a bit of that as well. Like, when I get injured, it's very easy to catastrophize. Even if logically I know things will probably be okay, but then I was having a conversation about this the other day. Even that knowledge is a kind of privilege, and what I mean is having a background in fitness, having a background in sports science and things like that, and sort of being in that environment, you do kind of have some sense that things are going to be okay. But for most people, when it happens, they think this is it. I've hurt my back. I've got a mechanical issue. It's a medicalized problem. That's it. Can you kind of talk about when you were sort of at the depths of your first real back injury, kind of where you were mentally, and then what sort of pinpoints of light got you out of there? What did you focus on? What were some new ideas that helped empower you and get out of that hole?
It was the best learning experience of my life, and I actually deem myself as quite lucky because it took me a year to actually get my MRI scan.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with severe leg pain and everything to the doctor, and I was just put, the referral through. So it was like, oh, you're on the waiting list now to get an
Yeah.
MRI scan. I was like, okay, what do I do with that information? And because I'd started coaching at the time, I was having to still go to the gym anyway. So like if that wasn't part of my livelihood, I don't know where I would be now
Yeah.
if that wasn't the case. So I was actually still having to get up in the morning because I had to go and coach the 6 a.m. classes. And so I would have had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start to try and move my hips, to try and be able to get upright, to be able to tolerate getting over to the gym, being able to sit in the car for it was like a 2-minute drive away. That
Yeah.
was still too much for me. So yeah, having to grit my teeth and bear it and start to try and move because I didn't know what was wrong yet. And what I started to find was that the more I kind of moved and tried to relax my hips, the pain would ease a little bit. And, over a course of a couple of weeks, couple of months, it started to get a little bit easier to move. And I was getting faster at getting the pain to calm down. So I was like, okay, this seems like it's helping. So I'm just going to keep doing this because I don't know what else to do here. So what I started to realize was how to actually get into a position and improve my hip mobility properly, and then adding the stability elements in as well. So that's when I kind of dropped the foam rolling stuff completely, because it was like, I'm wasting 15 minutes here on the roller when I know fine rightly if I get my hips moving first and get the muscles, feeling like they're actually doing something, it eases the pain quicker for me. So that's when I kind of went, no, I don't need that stuff. So what then started to happen, every morning I kind of reset. So I couldn't bend my head at all because my lower back would hurt. It was, everything's so connected. You don't realize that until you have a back injury. Everyone
Yeah.
says, oh, everything's connected. But when you have a back injury and you're moving your hand away from your body a little bit and it hurts your lower back, you're like, oh, everything
Mm-hmm.
is actually connected. It's horrible. So yeah, it was so painful to move, but it felt like the right thing to do because it would ease as I did move. And then, like I said, I started getting better and faster at overcoming it. And then that just started to compound over time because I was having to do it every morning. Otherwise, I couldn't get through the day. If I didn't do stretches and stuff in the morning, by midday, I was like, I need painkillers. I can't cope.
Yeah.
And I would have had to go back to bed, essentially. And I would have felt even worse for it. So the big key thing there was to just keep on moving. And then my mobility started to improve properly. So I was like, hey, my squat is much better. Like now I can actually hold a barbell in a way that I'm not leaning over to the side and stuff like that as
Yeah.
well. So my shoulders even started to improve everything because I was spending so much time actually working on my mobility because I was forced to, which is not the way it should be. You know, you should want to do it because you want to avoid this stuff happening, but I was forced to, and that's actually one of the things that helped me the most. So it was over the course of a year. I had three major setbacks. So a couple of months in, I was like, I feel pretty good here. I feel like I can do things. And then boom, I was like, ah. And the belief I had at the time was I thought the discs slipped and slipped
Mm.
out and slipped back in. So I thought, oh,
Yep.
the discs slipped again. So I was going to chiropractors and physios and everything. I was spending an absolute fortune
Yeah.
trying to get other people to fix me. And that was the belief I had, like I said, at the time. But a year in, I was absolutely pain free. I was moving better than I had ever in my life. I felt amazing. I had more energy. My movements of everything was improved so much. I PR'd my snatch. I PR'd my back squat, and got my deadlift numbers almost back up to what they were again. I felt absolutely incredible. And after training, I didn't feel sore. I didn't feel
Mm.
beat up anymore. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then it was like, oh, your MRI scan report is here to come in, or you have to go and get your MRI scan. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I've waited this long, I'm going to go get it anyway.
Yeah.
So I went and got it, and then it showed the structural injuries on the report. And that day, reading that report was the first time I had an inkling of pain at all. Reading a
Hmm.
piece of paper started to give me like
Yeah.
this fizzling feeling in my lower back, and I was like, no, I'm fine. This isn't
Yeah.
right. And then I went to the doctor consultation appointment, and they were like, Mr. Morrison, you're going to need to think of a change of career. You know, you can't be lifting heavy with an injury like this and all this here kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm absolutely fine. Like I
Yeah.
deadlifted 200 kilo on Monday. There, this is Wednesday. I'm fine. What are you on about? So just like I say, I deem myself as lucky because if I had got that piece of paper when my pain was at its worst, you probably wouldn't be talking to me right now. I would have
Yeah.
went, okay, I'm done then. You know, so that's what really set me down the path of starting to really learn about discs and nerve pain and all things like that there, you know. And the funniest thing is that a lot of it's very hard to explain why some people experience such extreme
Yes.
levels of pain and others just don't at all, you know. And what I've noticed through working with so many people is that your mental attitude towards it and your belief system is one of the most powerful tools. There is obviously always going to be those things that, you know, you'll have to get a surgery or whatever if
Mhm.
it's at that point. But for a lot of people, your body can learn to adapt to a lot of stuff, and actually you can be okay and feel pretty strong. And at worst case, kind of know how to manage things really, really well, even if you do
Yes.
get flare-ups, what we would call them.
Yeah. It's interesting as you were talking about this. I mean, I think we're similar ages. I'm a bit older than you. I'm 41 now, and you're somewhere in your late 30s.
37.
37. Okay, we'll say mid 30s. You
Thank
know,
you.
so so I kind of think about how the pendulum has swung back and forth across all these conversations, and I remember, for me, I think the peak was maybe 2014, 2015 of the foam rolling and the various mobility gurus and things like that. Um, and I remember sort of internalizing, I don't need to stretch. I don't need to do any of this stuff. If I just do some foam rolling and a few little tricks here on my nervous system, then that's fine. In fact, like stretching and stuff is quite old fashioned. Um, but then, quite obviously, if I looked at a video of myself, I wasn't moving well. And then I think, luckily we've swung back. And I think it's important to talk about narratives of pain as well in terms of a pendulum. The reason I'm saying this is because it's a hot conversation right now. It's always a hot conversation about, sort of mechanical models of back pain, and how it fits in with bio psychosocial models of pain and things like that. The reason I'm saying this is because neither one of us are saying that there aren't structural reasons behind pain, and exactly like you said, there are some times when people need surgery and things like that. You don't want to go too far in one direction and say that there's no physical reason behind pain. There is, but exactly like you said, mindset and belief systems are so important. And I don't mean that in like a woolly sort of. I think sometimes when people hear the word mindset, especially the way it gets used on Instagram memes and things like that, people kind of brush it off. But there is something very powerful about how things like stress, um, environment, different things, like you said, holding that piece of paper set off, a feeling that felt very real and was very real, but might not have had a mechanistic reason behind it. So what I'd kind of like to talk about, just to get people used to thinking about this, is what when you were growing up, what were your specific beliefs about pain? or what were the cultural beliefs about pain, and how has that changed? What are some of the conversations that are happening right now about how people think about pain, that you wish you knew when you were younger?
Thinking that pain is bad and you should avoid everything. So if you fall over and you bend over a rock and you hear a snap, yeah, go to hospital. You've
Yeah.
probably hurt something badly and it needs attention. But if you're just getting aches and pains, there can be so many different reasons for that. And it's your body, it's a signal. Your body's saying you need to do something about this. You don't speak brain. So the only thing your body can do is give you awareness to that area. And that is essentially what pain is. It's telling you to either move something more or avoid moving in a certain way. So by starting to treat it that way and almost stepping outside of yourself and being like, right, okay, what have I maybe missed here for a long time? Because that's the thing. That's why so many people think that age is a problem.
Mm.
It's not the age so much. Yes, it has a factor, but it's because you haven't done something for 10, 20, 30, 40 years maybe. So like, I always like this example of like, when is the last time, for any of the listeners right now, could you tell me that you turned your head fully left, fully right, looked
Mhm.
fully up, looked fully down, and leaned your head side to side, like getting the water out of your ears? When's the last time you did that? When's the last time you took note of those movements that you did them? So there's so many things with your hips, your knees, your ankles, your wrists, your fingers, everything that you're not doing all of the time. So you don't need to do a million exercises. It's just to kind of make a point. It's like you don't know what you haven't
Yeah.
moved for a long time. And you don't realize until the pain sets in. And you're like, what? This isn't fair. I'm active. I'm fit. And like,
Mhm.
I work with like cyclists. I work with professional athletes and stuff. They still get pain. And it's because a lot of the sports and the fun things that we enjoy to do don't actually have full joint mobility in them. So things still get missed. So you can have abs on your abs and still have pain, especially if disc injuries and stuff are related as well. So it's just such an important thing to make mobility work preemptive so that you move well all of the time. So, back in years ago, I used to just think, oh, I'm just a stiff person. Oh, everybody's knees hurt and all that there stuff. Whereas now I realize that anytime I do have a wee ache or a pain or an owie, it's like, right, I need to wiggle. I need to move this more, get some blood flow to the area and actually get the muscles feeling like they're on again. Because one of the things that kind of happens to me with my back, again, which is quite interesting. So a couple of months ago, it was last November, so about 4 months ago, I got another bunch of MRI scans because I got a really bad pain in my left hip. And so what happened to me years ago was that after the intense pain that I had after that year, I couldn't really feel my left glute properly.
Mm.
So if I would squeeze my glutes, essentially, I'd feel the right one squeezing. I'm like, yep, it's squeezing.
Yeah.
But my left one would be like, muscles moved. I'm aware of it,
Mhm.
but I don't feel it.
Yeah.
And I can't control my toes on my left foot in the same way either.
Mm.
So I was getting really bad pain in my left hip, and I always did kind of think, was like, well, if I can't really feel that muscle properly, and it's actually much smaller, so I've got muscle atrophy in my left glute as well, so my left glute's much smaller than my right glute, and I'll send you a picture later, don't worry. So I always wonder, well, not being able to feel that muscle in the right way, is that going to have an impact on my hip joint at some point? It's bound to, it might not be getting the support that it needs properly. So it's so important for me to always be doing exercises that engage that side. So if I'm doing like single leg glute bridges, for example, I'll always do more on my left side because I don't feel that side as much. But yeah, I was getting 3 months ago this really bad pain in my left hip, and I thought, something's wrong with this hip. I'm going to go get an MRI on this because there must be something wrong, because it was really painful to walk again, and I was like, I've had these symptoms before, but it's been really constant and it's not seeming to go away. So I thought, I was paying privately to get the MRIs anyway, so I thought, you know what? I'm going to go all in here. I'm going to get my back done again to see what it looks like now. Getting my hips done. I'm going to get my right shoulder done that I injured really badly years ago. And I'm going to get my neck done because I fell on my neck loads of times when I was trying to learn handstands and stuff and backflips.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like lots of times really badly cracked my neck and thought I'd broken it a bunch of times. So yeah, I got all these reports through, and I now have 4 herniations in my lumbar spine. So not 2 anymore. I've got 4. One's got slightly better than what it was, but it's kind of like spread out a bit more. My hip was fine. So the pain I was getting was from the nerves from my back. So like so intense that I thought it was a hip problem, which just shows how weird pain is.
Yeah.
I've got the dead degeneration and potential labral tears apparently. But my neck was the most interesting one. So I've got a bunch of bone growths on my neck. I've got stenosis in my neck, and I've also got a bulge in my neck with nerve impingement on my neck. And I have no symptoms whatsoever. None. So if I sit with my arms forward for a long period of time, my thumb starts to get a bit pins and needly, but if I wiggle my arm, it goes away immediately. So I was just like, this is so strange. I've also got a syrinx in my spinal cord as well. So I've a cyst inside my spinal cord too. No symptoms. So I'm just like, MRIs are funny, man. If you're
Yeah.
moving and you're strong, you can, hold up to a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, that's kind of that's where I'm at now. I'm wanting to be the 90-year-old medical marvel that doctors are looking at me going, "How are you still standing?" That's kind of what my weird goal is in life now.
Think of the old gag from The Simpsons where Mr. Burns has
Yeah, yeah.
every single disease and they just cancel each other out.
Indestructible.
Indestructible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think you're such a good example because case in point, you were saying about MRIs. I mean, you've got it all. So imagine you get a call from one of your good friends or like a family member, someone who's not into fitness, not into moving, doesn't kind of spend time on YouTube and things like that, and they say, "Oh, Tom, I was just tying my shoe, and I felt the sensation go through my back, and now I feel like I can't stand up and everything hurts, and all I can do is lie on the ground." What do you say to them? Okay, so you give them a good sort of medical thing. It's like, well, make sure it's not any of these signs. Go ahead and talk to a medical professional. Make sure that it's not any of the big warning signs, which I guess we could talk about. But then what next? What do the next few weeks look like for them?
They have no experience with movement whatsoever. Very first thing you need to do is get them to calm down and to use
Yes.
breathing first of all. So,
Yeah.
like literally getting them to just breathe through their nose and really try and have deep belly breaths to relax everything down. Because the first thing, if you ever have a really sharp, intense pain, you kind of go into that like 2-year-old, the toddler hurts itself going,
Yes.
and you naturally just breathe like that. Everybody does. That's just what happens. So
Hmm.
it's trying to get on top of that stuff first. So you're trying to bring awareness to your body to stop it doing the stupid things because on a long enough time horizon, even if you do have old injuries and wear and tear and stuff like that, you're actually fighting more against your body trying to compensate than
Hmm.
the injuries so much themselves. So trying to get on top of those things that your body's trying to do to get you to stop and lie down is one of the first things. So breathing's where that starts. And then, especially with the back issue, I just go straight for hips. Hey, let's get one leg up on your bed or your stairs or a chair or something and just start moving forwards and backwards. So it's a drill I would call the clockwork hips drill. And you essentially put your hips on, you wiggle back and forward, you change your foot position a little bit, so you turn your foot out a little bit more, you wiggle back and forward, so you're just slightly going into different positions with your hips, and that's just where I would start. Try and relax your breathing, try and move your hips forwards and backwards, and use a movement that, say, feels quite uncomfortable for you to do. Test it before you do the wiggling, and then have a bit of a wiggle, relax your breathing, and see does that improve at all. You're not looking for pain-free, you're looking for a 5 or 10% improvement. So if you are able to feel that you have actively changed your pain through moving, it's a really empowering thing. So you can get away from that, oh, I'm stuck here, I'm going to be like this forever, to be actually like, oh, I've made this slightly better. And then tomorrow, I'm going to make it slightly better again. Even if you start from zero every time, you'll start to find you're able to get yourself a little bit further. So for me, it was always forward flexion, like trying to bend over to touch my toes. If I
Hmm.
tilted my head forward, my lower back hurts. So for me, any kind of toe touch was excruciating to even try. So that was where I would have started. So would have tried to relax the hips first thing in the morning, doing one side at a time, rather than just trying to stretch both sides or sit straight down in the squat. One leg at a time, just move back and forward really gently, retest, and then back in, retest, back in. So that was the kind of stuff that I would have done, like I said, when I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, would have taken me about 30 minutes to do to kind of get to a point where I was able to walk okay. Um, with that, I was able to get that down to like 10 minutes at a time, and be able to calm things down really, really quickly. So it's all practice, and it's not talked about enough that retraining yourself out of pain is a trainable skill. It's something you can get better at. And the
Yes.
faster you're able to relax. So even though, um, like that time I was getting the symptoms in my leg a few months ago, like I couldn't bear the weight of my own leg again in bed, even trying to turn with my,
Hmm.
leg at all. It
Yeah.
was absolute agony. But I knew if I was to get my glutes working and feel my hamstrings a little bit and move my hips around, that it would have eased off enough so I'd be able to actually stand up and start to, limp a bit, but still actually be able to walk. So that's kind of, you're wanting to move, but in a
Yeah.
safe way that feels safe. You want to make your body feel safe.
Yeah, and you've got a few very good videos, so I'll make sure I post them because I think you have one specifically that really talks about that process. What about any mantras or anything that you tell yourself when you get a bad flare up? What do you try to tell yourself?
The mindset idea here is I'm very much like a F you. I'm not having this. I
Yeah.
am very aggressive with it. It's like, no, I do not want to feel like this and I'm not putting up with it. I refuse to feel like this. This is not who I am. Um, so yeah, that like, even though it was like like I was trying to do certain movements, like a side plank, for example, was one that
Hmm.
was really, really good for me because if I activated my obliques and my glutes and everything, things felt easier. But
Yeah.
initially, to do that during a flare up for me, it felt as if when I got up into a side plank, as if someone was deliberately pushing a screwdriver into my spine. That's what it felt like. It was that painful.
Yeah.
So I would have been like tears streaming down my face, and like my wife in the living room just going, oh, just just ignore him, let him do his thing.
Yeah.
And then like 15 minutes later, I'd be going into my wife going, look, I can do this, and I would have been wiggling my hips and touching my toes, and she's like, that's crazy. What are you on?
Yeah.
So yeah, and the weirdest thing is, especially with nerve pain, sometimes there's like a pain scale for a bad injury of like,
Yes.
if it's above a 7 out of 10, you need to go to hospital kind of thing. But weirdly, with the nerve pain you can kind of experience, it can be 1,000 out of 10 in a
Be a
pain scale,
thousand
but
out
you
of
need to
10.
keep going.
Yeah.
Because you
It's one of
don't want
those
to.
things, if you haven't experienced it, your entire body shuts down. I mean, like, I think like I've had some pretty good injuries in my life. I've been in car crashes on a motorcycle, on a scooter, not a motorcycle, but
Motorcycle's cooler.
and yeah, motorcycle sounds cooler. It was a little teeny tiny scooter, so not as cool. It was like a Vespa. But it's like, yeah, okay, that hurts. That hurts in a way that I understand. That's legible to me. But that deep nerve pain where your body just shuts down, it's almost not to even call it pain isn't right. It's just like you sort of cease to exist for a few seconds until you come back. It's just like this total, just electric sensation. So, all right. So you've got this idea. You kind of have this game plan working back in, and I always like the idea of sort of having a conversation with your body, coaxing it back in. And I remember when I had my bad flare up, which was also in October, November. I had an ipsilateral lateral shift. And I was just, like while I was dealing with the pain, I was looking at myself in the mirror, and my whole body had just shifted over. So none, like my head or my thoracic spine wasn't stacked over anything else. It was like quite a few degrees over. And it was interesting. I remember going to a physio, and depending on the modality that the physio uses, they'll try to use the side glides, but because it was ipsilateral, so my body was moving towards the pain, which is quite unusual. The person was like, decided they were just going to start cranking on me and like really pushing it, and my body was just reacting. It's like, this is not good. This is not good. I'm like, I need you. Can you stop for a second? This doesn't make any sense to me right now. My body has shifted over in this direction, so it's some sort of weird pain compensation. If my muscles got me over there by seizing up, I'm pretty sure I can have a conversation with my body to sort of bring it back in. So for me, I found that doing like a lot of heavy farmer's carries, suitcase carries, so unilateral suitcase carries, and even just isometric things, like I'd be walking in the woods and I'd find like a tree or something with a low branch, and I would just kind of pull on it and get this sort of tension. And then when I relaxed, I realized my body was coming back. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think people do need to realize it is a conversation with your body. You give it a little bit of stimulus, you see where you give it a little bit more stimulus, and then you both sort of agree to work together, so you can start moving in and say this is okay. Um, I had a question from one of our current students, and she's someone who also follows you and does SMM. But we should probably say that she does simplistic mobility method, just in case I didn't enunciate that, which is one of the programs you've put out. And one of the things that she's dealing with right now, or trying to overcome, is fear. Is this fear of letting herself use her body again, so she can move, and she can engage with the world. But she doesn't feel comfortable picking up relatively heavy things. She's developed these sort of fear avoidance cycles, and she's being very proactive about it. But that was what she wanted me to ask you specifically: is how do you start getting over that fear? How do you start engaging with the world again in the ways that you used to?
The great thing about SMM is that it's got that checklist idea that you're
Mm-hmm.
checking all of your joints and knowing that they're moving okay. So if you can do all of those movements to a relatively good standard, then your hips are moving okay, your shoulders and your spine, they're moving okay. The joints are doing what they're supposed to be able to do, both in a flexibility term and a strength term. So what you kind of noticed there with your back flare up there as well was like through using strength, you got it to calm down. Through adding more tension, you were able to get rid of the tension, which is such an important thing for everyone to kind of learn about their body. So you don't want to get caught in the trap of always stretching all of the time, because you're just trying to relax things and make them feel looser. Whereas, like, especially with like the hamstrings, they want to feel strong. They should be like a tight rubber band. They're for explosive muscles. They're for running and sprinting and stuff. So using SMM as that checklist is like, right, okay, all my joints can move the way they're supposed to be able to move. That has earned me the right to be able to play more, to be able to wiggle more and try picking things up. And a weird, like, spend an hour on YouTube and just search for like parkour feels, and watch a few, like, MMA fights, and just see all of the crazy positions
Yeah.
the body can get into and the stuff that it can handle, watch some strongman events and stuff and just be like, you know what? Maybe the bodies are a little more durable than I think they are. And it's just it's trying to reframe things in your mind, and telling yourself that you're not weak, and it's you've
Yes.
put the work in. So if you've been working on SMM, if you've been working on your mobility, and you're able to move your joints in all the way they're supposed to, and there's no restrictions, and you're able to squat, you're able to touch your toes, things like that, it's like there's no reason for you to not be picking things up, and it's even with things like osteoporosis and stuff like that. If you Google, what should you do with osteoporosis? Resistance training is one of the first things
Yes.
that comes up. You
Yep.
want your body to feel strong, and the way to start doing that is to learn how to, like, lift correctly. So it's one of the things as well. Like, if you can get a hands-on coach, in-person coach, that can teach you
Hmm.
how to brace properly and be able to hinge properly, be able to actually pick things up with a neutral spine at first, you can then earn the right to be able to pick things up as well with a rounded spine. So
Yep.
it's just about knowing both. And that's kind of the thing. Anytime I work with someone that would have like a hard type labor type job, in construction or something, they're having to lift and bend and twist in awkward ways all the time and lift heavy things. Like, they don't have a choice, they have to. The
Yes.
thing that they need added in is actually more lifting, but with a neutral spine as
Hmm.
well, so that they're doing both. So that's kind of the way you want to come at it. You want to learn how to access the muscles, your posterior chain, so your hamstrings, your glutes, and your lats and everything. Learn how those things all work properly and start to progressively load those. So it's something we always say is, like, you don't want to be the heaviest thing that you lift, because then you're always walking around your 1 rep max. Essentially, if you're only ever lifting your own body weight all the time, you start to become the problem. But if you're,
Yes.
you don't need to win a world medal in deadlifting or anything like that,
Yeah.
but you want to be lifting something a little bit more than you, and training the muscles, doing the reps, so that your body's like, hey, this body weight by itself is great. This is like a break, because
Yep.
you're actually so much stronger. So start there, learn how to lift properly. Kettlebells is a great thing to kind of go through, learn how to hinge, learn how to really, really feel your hamstrings. And then, yeah, deliberately start bending and twisting in different ways. So one of the things you'll see sometimes in our YouTube videos, I'll sometimes like teach a technique and be like, right, here's where your hips want to be. You want to turn like this. You want to breathe out here. You want to make sure you've got tension here. Okay. And at the end of the video, I'll be like, right, okay, now free it up, play like a ninja, move around, bend and twist in any which way you can think of, and deliberately put yourself into weird positions. Round your back, twist, do those things. Your spine's supposed to be able to do that stuff. And through not doing that stuff, that's where you get those, I've took my back, lifting the dish out
Yes.
of the dishwasher. You've got to get into those weird positions and let your body see safely. So it's just about spending that little bit of time of deliberately experimenting with movement in different ways, but saying to yourself is like, I'm going to do it slowly, keeping control of my breathing. I'm going to give myself the confidence. And it's just that kind of idea of like earning the right to
Earning the
your
right.
body to not freak out.
Yeah, we use the term like weird strength and in between strength quite a lot as well, because because I do have that traditional gym background. I found that whenever I engage in an activity that was just outside the boundary of where I train strength, that's where I kept on finding my injuries. Um, and it took a long time for me to say, well, hey, you know what? Yeah, I've got my 200 kg deadlift. Like, I am strong in that position, but not I keep, but I will occasionally get injuries. And that's because I realize right outside that range, that's where these injuries happen. Katie Bowman sometimes talks about this idea of stress risers of, a lot of times where injuries occur is when one part of your body that's really well trained and really strong sort of overlaps with the part of your body that tends to be undertrained or underdeveloped. Um, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of people need to get comfortable with. And I think the way that you said that is very good. Sort of work under control. Find those neutral positions, find those sort of optimal, let's say gym positions as a shorthand, if you know what I mean. And then yeah, start adding in little novel challenges, but be smart, listen to yourself. Um, all right, so I wanted to shift gears just a little bit, and I wanted to talk about the online fitness industry, Fitspo, maybe the fitness sector in general. Um, you're really well known on Instagram and YouTube and things like that. You have a good following, and I think you understand what that space is like. where do you think the current industry, and maybe current social media environment, where do you think it's letting people down? What are some erroneous ideas or disempowering myths, or maybe just unhealthy ideas that people are seeing? And what would you change if you could?
It's a very loaded question
It's a loaded question. I don't
because
want you to
there's
get in
so
trouble. Yeah,
it's one of those things. It's just what do you see more of, essentially. And the weird thing, an issue with algorithms in general is like if you hang on too long on something that you're triggered by that makes you angry, you're
yeah,
then going to get shown more of that stuff,
yeah.
So
That's true.
um, the kind of thing, it's like taking note of what you're taking in yourself. So if you're seeing people with ripped abs and they're just telling you to go hard or go home all the time, it's like you got to try and actively search for some people that aren't like that, that maybe don't. If you gel with that, that's cool, and
Yeah,
that's something, I do not begrudge how I used to train in my 20s. Like, have at it,
yeah,
when you're that bit younger and, your recovery's off the charts, just like go hard, play, build a foundation that can carry you the rest of the way kind of thing. So just kind of depends where you're at in your life in that kind of way. So I think just for some people, in a weird way, for a lot of personal trainers and stuff that you see, you've either got the all or nothing people,
hmm,
or the others. Sometimes they're trying to like relate to people in this weird way of saying, everything's fine, eat too much, it's okay, you don't need to do that much as well. It's like, well, no, you want to do a wee bit. So I kind of like to try and fall in the middle somewhere with
hmm,
things. Um, so you're kind of giving people a bit of inspiration to want to do a little bit more, but not like making them feel bad, and that's the hard thing I think with a lot of the fitness industry is a lot of people compare themselves so much to people that are much younger, and they have so much time to
yep,
train and do stuff. Like I shared a picture of myself the other day, so I've got a bit leaner this year than what I have been in many years, and purely the reason for that is because my kids are now 5 and 8. They're much easier to look after now.
yeah,
My business isn't in the horrible growing stage of like so I have more time for myself. That's why I look better. It's not a new type of training. It's not a new diet or anything. It's like I've a little bit less stress in my life and I've things more under control. And that's where I'm at now. Whereas
mm,
for a good few years there, carrying more weight, and I just needed to at that time, which is fine
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of acknowledging where you're at and not begrudging it as well, which is really tricky. So yeah, just really take note of what you're watching, because all the stuff that's out there to anger you or to make you feel bad is there, but there's also the stuff out there that to make you feel good and inspire you, and like there's things that I follow online, like a guy that has Parkinson's and stuff, and he always shares
mm,
his training and stuff he's doing. I'm like, he's incredible. Like I love that stuff, and like a lot of my teachers that I've had over the years have always been very much older and stuff, so I very much value experience,
hmm,
rather than how someone kind of looks, because like I used to be able to eat 4 Chineses a week and drink Coca-Cola every day and still have abs when I was in my 20s
yeah,
and stuff like that, So it's kind of, you need to be careful who you're kind of listening to and what your own inputs are. So yeah, social media and YouTube and everything, they're great resources.
hmm,
But they can also accidentally be something that just makes you feel crap about yourself and you're just like, well.
yeah. We have this conversation a lot in our course, and then it's very easy to become quite negative about online life and social media. But then students will raise their hands and say, well, actually, um, when I was in high school, we didn't have the internet, and I felt lonely all the time. And then I got the internet, and I realized that there are lots of people out there to support me. Or people say, well, I met my husband or my wife online. Or people say, hey, we found you guys online. I found you just through a YouTube video. Really, I was just searching back pain stuff. Um, I think the one that changed it for me was that Alan Thrall had a really good video from years ago about when he hurt his back, and then that kind of got me on like a very nice sort of algorithmic rabbit hole, which brought me over to you and some other people. Yeah, so it is a double-edged sword, and I guess I normally ask this question later, but I'll ask it to you now. What are some trends that have you feeling optimistic? Like how have conversations changed in the last few years that make you think, what, these are some really good points. We're moving in the right direction. Humanity is going to be okay.
There's a lot more people just being themselves now. I think the world's finding it easier to talk on camera,
Hmm.
because it used to be very unnatural. Like, a good few years ago, anyone you put a camera in front of, they'd be like, oh, and they just wouldn't have been able to do it. And yes, it's
Yeah.
still hard to start for the first time. Like, it is very challenging for a lot of people. But now I just think because of video calling and everything
Hmm.
now, that a lot of people are just more comfortable with sharing them actual selves. Um, so, you're not putting on a front all of the time, which is great. What we're talking about, the social media things. I've lost my train of thought completely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're just talking. Sorry. Yeah, we're talking about what are some trends, I guess, in social media or in the
Ah,
fitness
yes.
industry. The conversation about wellness. Just how people think about, I guess, living the good life. How's this conversation evolved?
The the weird thing is that a lot of people with the triggering content at the first is like, this exercise is rubbish, you need to do this exercise is rubbish, you need to do this exercise. There was this whole trend of that was going on there for about a year, I would say.
Yeah.
That's kind of phasing out, which is great, and like I said, that's what you've got, these people that are actually sharing, hey, this is what I found really helpful for me, I hope you find it helpful too, and that's a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing now. And just sharing your own stories is becoming more common online as well, which I think is a really good thing. Because like as much as like myself and yourself can share stuff about our back pain and our journey and stuff like that, it's like
Mm.
we're not 50 years old,
Yeah.
we're not 60 years old, so it's hearing stories from someone a similar age, similar
Yeah.
background to yourself is just so good, and you're just seeing so much more of that now, um and people that are older training and stuff too. You've just so much access to knowledge online from people in similar circumstances, which is great, and just seeing people share that stuff and just speaking and being natural on camera now, it's a good thing. I love social
Yeah.
media and stuff. It's really like it's give me a incredible life that I've never dreamed could have been possible. Like think this type of business that we have now wouldn't have existed 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible thing, and the connections you can make and stuff too is awesome.
Um, while we're talking about social media, I guess I should bring up that you do have a group on Facebook, and I hadn't been on Facebook for a long time. I deleted my account, for numerous reasons. But I thought, what, I'll get online. When I started SMM, I think I'll make a Facebook account just so I can get online and see what it's all about. And you have one of the most uniquely positive spaces I think I've recently seen on the internet. The Facebook group is just so nice, and I'm not exactly sure how this whole combination of people just being positive, helping each other. I think it's that everyone sort of has a common cause, but it's such a great space. How do you think you created such a nice, positive space on the internet?
It really is remarkable. If I do say so myself,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
amazing.
such a, like I said, it's the most positive place. Like I go on every day to check the comments, and it's never a chore for me. I'm just like
Yes.
I just love seeing this. I love seeing other people encourage each other. I think a big part of it is down to the kind of way that we've given out our messages and the way we promote ourselves. We are that bit sillier, and we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we like to make it fun, but we're also encouraging that way of like, you can do this kind of thing. That's the ethos that we have of like, you can fix you. We want to empower you to have the knowledge to be able to fix yourself and help others to do the same as well. Like we made a joke in the advert about being a cult,
Mm.
but it really is. The way I feel now compared to how I used to feel, I don't want anyone to ever feel like I did. So
Yes.
that's kind of the message that I can kind of spread out with people, and I think it just filters. You'll get people that want to work with you that gel with your personality, and that just group has just been a full filter of that, and it's just grown so much over the years. That even seeing, I think there's over 20,000, maybe 30,000 people in there actually. Um, that they're all just so positive, and it's like if someone's sore or unsure about something, they're like, there's always like three or four other people that can share and say, hey, I've been
Yep.
there too, I found that as well, this really helped, and just keep on going, basically don't stop, and just having that little bit of extra support is just so good for people. Because that's essentially what I wanted when I was at my worst. I was like, I
Hmm.
wish I could find someone that's been through this that could tell me it gets better. You can feel very lonely, so yeah, our group is absolutely amazing, and
Yeah, it's
purely,
great.
yeah, I think it's down to
It's
just how we present ourselves online.
it's such an asset. One of the things that we sort of think about and what we do at Wild Strong is, a lot of what we try to do when we build up these communities is we try to build support networks. We try to make sure that there's this sort of mutual aid aspect, so that where you live in your community, if you have a problem, even something little like, hey, does anybody have a lawnmower I can borrow? Sure, I've got a lawnmower. Or, oh, my kids, we don't have any school uniforms this year. Does anyone have some old ones? Just little things like that, or like maybe using it as an avenue for people to start like a gardening allotment so they can come work out. The idea is to get, some things that are online and start bringing them offline locally. So I've got no idea what your day to day looks like if you work in a physical gym anymore. I mean, I assume you do because I see a similar backdrop. But what do you do when you're offline? What does your offline life look like? And follow-up question, how do you try to maximize the good that you can do in the world? How do you try to scale that up so that you can kind of get outside of the fitness bubble and really try to make sure that you're making up a net positive as broadly as you can?
I like it.
Yeah.
Day to day for me, so I don't work in a gym anymore. So I stopped pretty much over COVID time.
Hmm.
The gym I was in at the time closed down. And that's really when we just started really sharing a lot of stuff online. I was doing Facebook Lives every day online and stuff. So it really grew from there,
Yep.
which is why I went fully online. So we still love to do seminars. So we do, seminars like 30 people at them at a time, and go through a lot of movement stuff. So mainly I work with people online now. Sometimes if I can get somewhere to hire, I would like take like 4 or 5 one-to-ones in a day or whatever, just to keep on working with people. So I would never want to not work with people in person ever again.
Yes.
It's just more now that time wise and having a family and everything, it's like I want to spend more time at home if I can, and kind of work when it kind of suits me. So like I would kind of like check messages and stuff like after 9 o'clock at night and things, because it's like I want to have the day to, spend time with the kids, or, do family kind of stuff as well. So um, I train at a gym still. So I would go to a gym to train at with Jenny. And I also have my home gym too. So something I really enjoy. So a lot of my day I actually devote time to, like, I call it Potter time. So
Hmm.
I go into my gym and I have to be there for an hour. I can train if I want or not train if I want, but that's generally when I'll come up with ideas and stuff. Because a lot of the stuff that I do, it's like sitting down and thinking, right, I want to get someone to want to improve their hip abduction. How could I get someone to actually care about that? How could I actually inspire someone to want to do that? What's a drill I could give them that would be a really easy lift for them? So a lot of pondering is my day. And a lot of writing as well. So like we're building my courses and stuff. So a lot of the time I would actually be sitting writing, and I do everything from my phone quite weirdly. I type, one finger at a time on a laptop. I'm absolutely hopeless, but on my phone, like I read our ebook on the phone and courses and stuff, everything.
No, that's
And
funny.
then Jenny's the one that actually edits the stuff and, actually
Mhm.
makes it presentable for an online course. So yeah, a lot of writing, a lot of just spending time with kids, and, family time for me is just that really important thing. What was the follow up question?
Yeah, the follow up is trying to maximize good, trying to take some of what you do and trying to scale it up. I guess for context on that question, one thing I say almost every episode is that in both the UK and the US, about 85% of people don't have any kind of gym membership or any kind of active physical activity membership. So it's you've got the 15% of the people who are going to the gyms, going to the CrossFits, maybe part of a sports league or something, and then there's the 85% that aren't. So you know I think a lot of the idea of formalized physical activity that we have is not serving people,
Yeah,
you know.
a lot of people.
And my question is how can we kind of maximize the good that we do in the real world? How can we scale this up and help more people?
Sharing stuff that you're doing is one of the best things. And, I love walking as well. Like, I really like to try and go for a walk every day if I can. And having that third place, so it doesn't need to be a gym, but, you've got work, you've got home, but having that third place that you just really enjoy going is so important to find. And that's, again, the enabling idea that I like to get you moving well and feeling okay, that you could go for a walk or whatever, go for a hike, enjoy climbing mountains, anything like that you want to do. Helping people find a third place that they just really love to go, that clears their head and it gives them something that they enjoy every day. Um, so that's kind of like our message. Like everything that we try and do to grow is to help more people. That's kind of why we do what we do. So like, I don't just want to have, there's certain business models you can have where you get yourself like 100 clients and you charge them all per month and that's just you kind of thing. Whereas we're not like that. It's like, I literally want to hit 1 million people on the platforms and everything so that I've reached more people to give them that starting point. I just want to be like, hey, do this. It's incredible. You'll love it. It'll change your life. And then someone goes, it's all right. Oh, this is quite nice. Actually, I'm going to go do this now. And I'm like, bye. I want to have that positive influence in your
Yeah.
life that just sets you off on a new path, because that's the thing that fitness ultimately became for me. So I went from someone who wasn't competitive at all and didn't enjoy the gym whatsoever to, like, when I moved better and I felt stronger, it was like, hey, I like actually lifting these weights.
Mm.
This is actually pretty fun. And then I started to, like, make friends, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? like, I could do even more than that. What are you doing? And then you start to play, and I actually became a competitive person just through being stronger and actually feeling better. So yeah, for us, it's just about pushing out that message that there's so much stuff out there, and you have the power to completely change your life, and that's why we post videos every day. It's why we have a schedule. It's why we write so much and try and come up with funny ideas and stuff to keep people actually engaged and want to do this stuff and make it look fun. I really don't like have you ever seen, sometimes I'll do movement demos and I've always got a really silly face on. It's because I actually enjoy doing the stuff. But so a lot of times you'll see movement demos online with people, they've got a really serious, grumpy face on, and it's like, hey, the exercises feel nice. Like, let people think that they actually are fun. Don't be so serious all the time. So that's kind of where we're at with things, and just share as much as you can.
That's great. I think that's a great place to stop. So, Tom Morrison, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on. It was great speaking to you.
It's a daily exercise. It's a daily exercise. It's a daily exercise.
Hi, we're back. We're on a track. It's still windy, and now I have a cat with me. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Huge thanks to Tom for his time. If you are not following Tom already, have a look at his stuff. He's got a great YouTube channel and funny Instagram. And if you're working with someone who's going through pain, or you're going through pain, just really have a look at some of his content and some of his courses. They're really, really great. And I hope that conversation sort of sparked something in you. You can find him at tommorrison.co.uk or Instagram, YouTube. He's got loads of free resources and quite a lot of excellent courses, all just kind of quite straightforward and nonsense free. As always, if you enjoyed the show, let us know. Please leave a review. It does make such a big difference. Or just give us a little star on Spotify or Apple. It just makes a really big difference to our ratings, and more people can listen to the podcast. Right, we will see you in a couple of weeks when we're speaking to, who are we speaking to? Eugene Minogue from Play England. That's a really good chat as well. I'm really looking forward to listening to that one, actually. I heard kind of the last 5 minutes of it when Andrew was interviewing Eugene, and they just kind of hit on a lot of interesting points. So there's something to look forward to. Right, have a lovely time, and we'll see you soon.